Hello, everyone. It's episode 58 of the Fitness Business Growth Podcast. I'm here with Scott. Mate, how are you?
I'm doing well, brother. Pleasure to be here.
Mate, thanks for jumping on today. So last time I saw you was in Sydney, but something exciting has happened the last couple of months in your life. You and your wife, Brooke, have moved to Bali. So, mate,
Correct.
how did that come about? And that's part of working online. Like, what has that experience been like for you? Because you often hear about the digital nomad living overseas, 10K from a laptop in Bali lifestyle.
Yeah, it's funny, right? So we came here in 2018, I think it was. And I remember just thinking, like, man, if we could just set up somehow where we could do this remotely, because we were like managing gyms at the time, right? And then we came back again on our honeymoon, which was supposed to be like a 10-day kind of endeavor, and it turned into 2 months.
Okay.
I looked at Brooke and I was like, should we move here? She was like, yeah. So we went back, sold everything, and then, just made the move. So it's been like all up now. It's been kind of like 3 months. So yeah, it's been amazing.
All right. And I think, I guess you coming from Perth, it's not that far of a flight home if you have to duck back and see family, which is good.
Yeah, 3 hours on the flight. So it's handy.
So
easy for people to come here as well.
So moving to Bali, like, what has your biggest lesson been from living in Perth to moving to effectively a third world country?
The biggest thing is I have a whole new appreciation for people that have now moved. We've done a lot of interstate moves, but international is something else. Even just in terms of visas and everyone's kind of got a different way to do it, and it's very hard to figure out a standardized way to kind of go about it. So it's just navigating that. Plus you've got language barriers. So yeah, I guess the biggest lesson is kudos to people that have done it. So I've sold a fair few accounts with people that have had to move countries to get their visas. Now I have a whole new respect for them.
I spent a bunch of time in Thailand, mate, not much time in Bali. It's like, Sawadika, Kapunka. How's your Balinese coming along, mate?
Yeah, not great. Duolingo, I went through about 2 weeks of that. So, I can say thank you. So.
Pretty much. And your son, mate, how old is Oakley?
Almost 3. Yeah.
3. Yeah. So school's in 2 years' time. Are we going to school in Bali, or are we coming back to Australia? Is that too far away?
That's plans and conversations that we still are yet to have, Jayme. We've still got a bit of time, right? He kind of goes into school essentially. Well, he can go into school next year. It's more optional, but then from there, we're gonna have to have some solid plans. So there are some really good, international schools here. They're pretty expensive, but you can definitely get a good education over here.
Yeah, me and my partner Ellen are currently trying for a baby, and the whole plan is she has 12 months of mat leave. Once the baby's healthy, I'm not sure what happens after you have a baby for the first 4 to 8 weeks, but then we're going to Bali for a year. Are you there, mate? Can you hear me?
There we go. I got you back. Yeah,
cool.
I just lost you for a second.
Cool. Well, mate, let's rip in. The reason why I invited you onto the podcast today, because you obviously work for the largest sales training company on earth. I talk about sales a lot, but you started in fitness working for RBT. So, Scott, I want to go on the Scott Orbuck journey from RBT to cybersecurity to Jemery Minor, Matt Ryder, Sales Sniper, NAPQ, to where you are today. So, mate, let's wind the clock back. Before you worked for RBT, what got you into the fitness industry to begin with?
Yeah, so it's been a journey. I think like most people, right? I just had a passion for fitness. I liked training, and then, you see it and you see PTs and you're like, shit, this could be really cool. Turn a passion into a bit of a job. So I started as a PT. I actually started working at the gym I went to. There was a bit of a job opportunity there. I never thought that I was a chippy, right? I was a carpenter. So that was a big change. And then from there, I started working at RBT, right? From that point, I did not know that there was any sales involved in being a personal trainer, which I'm sure some people have kind of gone through that life lesson as well. So I remember when I first started, I was like, sweet, I'm just going to run sessions, get people shredded, get them jacked, and just high fives and butt taps. But then it got to the point where they're like, okay, cool, you've got we did 28-day challenges, which they were very new at the time. So we had 28-day challenges and we had to convert off the back of it. I was like, oh shit, I got to sell with people.
So, mate, I want to wind back the clock because I believe RBT, Travis Jones, effectively invented the 28-day challenge.
It did, yeah, I think so.
Which
right?
has changed the industry. Like our entire done for you business is built off 28-day challenges. So what year was this? And
so this is 2000, and that's a good question. It must have been I think it was the very start of 2017 that actually it started. But I did one of the 28-day challenges, and that would have been about mid 2016, maybe even earlier. So
I want to just convey to the audience just the excitement.
Still holds true.
Yeah, I want to convey to the audience the excitement behind a 28-day challenge. The only way to join a gym was to walk into a gym and was to sign a 12-month contract. Nothing exciting about it. All of a sudden, it's this 28-day body transformation challenge for ladies just like you that live in X area. And it was unbelievably novel and exciting and a new way for people to effectively get into shape.
Yeah, sorry, I just cut out a little bit. It's the Bali Wi-Fi is it's trying. No, the 28 days is wicked, man. Like it changed. It made it like so. For one, it was just so accessible, right? It's like 28 days. There's no real lock-in. I can get in. You can see the vibe. The beautiful thing about it is like 28 days for someone going into a new like fitness program regime diet. Like, how good a results are they going to get?
Yeah.
Like starting something new within 28 days. Like they're always going to get, regardless they actually do it, they're always going to get some pretty outrageous results within 28 days, right? So then the upsell kind of off the back of that, like it was such a smart model. So it's still working as well, right?
Hey there, Scott. I think the Bali Wi-Fi is struggling. Are you there, mate?
There we go. We're back.
We're back. Cool. So let's start again. You mentioned that the 28-day challenge was super exciting, a great way for people to get into shape. And the upsell off the back of that was what was the next sale?
Yeah, so from there we had to upsell them into a 16-week challenge, right? I'm trying to remember the price at the time. I think at the time it was like $77. They actually brought it up to 97, and then for our gym, because we were quite expensive, it was about 107, I think it was. So we were one of the most expensive, but so it was a 77. So I went into those kind of upsell calls. Like I had rapport with these people because I'd been training them. I was their trainer for 28 days. I had no idea how to sell. Like no idea. Never done it. I'm a chippy. Like, you know what I mean? So I basically would just be like, look, you got some really good results. You want to keep getting them?
Were you even aware that was a sales conversation, or were you just like, they're going to continue, they're enjoying it?
Yeah. I was aware, right? Because I was a bit like, oh shit, like I haven't done this before. But I think they just thought it was a kind of consult. But then at the end, I just kind of like out of nowhere was like, all right, well, it's going to be like $77. Like, you want to do it?
Yeah.
So I remember like my first challenge, I think I converted like maybe one, right? I think we had like 10 or something. So like 10%, like the bottom 10%, the ones that always do it. And then it was funny because, so obviously you're aware, right? But maybe the audience, they're not. Like, so Brooke, who you've had on the podcast a few times, so she's my wife, right? And I was with her at the time as well. So she gave me like I can't actually remember what it was, but she gave me one thing. She was like, look, just say this like one thing and just see how it goes. I was like, fuck, I got nothing to lose. Like, I'm not converting here. And it was night and day. Like, I remember my next challenge that we had, so this is 28 days later, I converted 9 out of the 10, so 90%.
And what was that one thing?
I can't remember. I'd spoken to her about this before. I think her advice was just have conviction and confidence.
Yeah,
right? Because
I thought either that or an alternate close. Do you want to pay weekly or fortnightly?
The option close. No, it wasn't. That was the funny thing about it as well, though. Like, it wasn't like a sales like technique. It was just like have conviction and confidence. And I just went into that and I was like, fuck, she's right. Like, I've trained these people for 28 days. Why do I feel weird about this? Like, if I feel weird, they're going to feel weird.
So you're like, maybe you can continue only if you want, if you feel like it, as opposed to, listen, you had an amazing 28 days, you've lost 4 kilos. I know your end goal is losing 10. Let's keep going.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the thing, right? This is what I tell like salespeople as well that I kind of work with. Like, you can have the world's best script, right? But if you present it or you use it like a what's the word? Like a dweeb, for lack of better words, right?
Yeah.
Like you feel like you're like weak and you're unconfident. Like, that will never outsell someone who has the worst script but they are super confident and they have so much conviction. Okay?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, mate, because I closed like an absolute demon for my gyms. And this is before I knew anything about sales. I just truly believed to my core that, hey, if you live in this town, our gym's here, you should absolutely come. And if you have that much conviction, people don't want to be confrontational, argumentative, and they borrow that conviction, they borrow that certainty. Like, hey, fuck, this guy really believes in it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's just social dynamics, right? Like, there's a reason why cults are like a thing, because usually the cult leader has got so much conviction in what they do and what they believe. People want conviction. Like, people like desire certainty so much. But if they can get that from someone else, like that can do a lot of the heavy lifting. Now, where things get really deadly is when you can merge the two. So when you have a really high level skill set matched with absolute conviction, like that is the combo, right? But that's why, like, a lot of the business owners, like they do pretty well, like within sales, like when they start a business, because they have so much conviction in it, because they have so much belief in their product. So they usually start pretty well, right?
Yeah. I remember something just amazing. It was, so this is before I really went down the rabbit hole of doing sales training and developing as a salesperson. I came across Matt Ryder through James Cant. This is like 2019, 2018, maybe. I listened to a YouTube video, and there was 2 questions I got from it. And then I just used those 2 questions alone combined with my conviction, and I was 10 times better. It was like, why?
Do you remember what they were?
Yeah, I do. Exactly. It's like, so like, why now?
Yeah.
Right. And they just pushed themselves into it. I thought it was fucking brilliant. And the last one, which was just what I think I used to struggle with having so much conviction, I'd occasionally get people to pull out halfway through giving card details. And it was just the simple trial close. Do you think this could potentially like get you to your goal? And those 2 questions alone, combined with my conviction, made me, I guess, the salesperson I was. It's amazing. Just like, I was so close.
Yeah, it's really interesting, eh? And like those 2 questions, like they make absolute sense. Like, why would you not ask them, right? Someone's got a problem. Like, for one, do you feel like this will help you, like solve it, right? And secondly, like why do it now? Like, that brings them into like the exact moment again, because it's very easy to like procrastinate, keep can down the road. So a simple question like that makes them realize, like, well, that's what I've been doing, right?
Yeah. I used to have my Garmin watch on, and it's like people giving me card details, and my heart rate would just go 10, 20, just continue to skyrocket. So RBT, Brooke taught you conviction. She said, just believe in what you sell. And that drastically improved you from 10% to 90%. How long were you at RBT for? And did you continue to develop as a salesperson? Did you continue to get sales training in that role?
Yeah, it's really funny that you say that. Like, so we did have some, like, obviously Travis Jones, like, he's pretty good at sales, right? So, we had some internal kind of team, like company trainings and that. I was still kind of like in the mentality, like, no, I'm a PT, and I moved into like a manager role. We kind of got promoted, and Brooke and I essentially moved into a section where we would go to like certain clubs that were maybe like at a certain level, and we would boost them up, right? That kind of became our role. That was when I met Matt as well, because we went over to the East Coast in Sydney. But it's funny, like I still had it in my head, like that I was like the manager, and I was the PT, and I was going to be the best coach ever, right? And Brooke was the sales killer. So she would do all the sales for the gyms, and we would grow these gyms really well. She would be the one that would bring them all in. I kind of relied on myself to fulfill and everything on the back end. So yeah, it was still like a few years until that point where when I really met like Matt, who started Sales Sniper, that I was like, shit, okay, this is like a craft. Like, this is a skill set.
Such an interesting dynamic, by the way, mate, because like if you enjoy fulfillment, if you enjoy onboarding, if you enjoy delivery, it's typical of the 3 things salespeople fucking despise. So would you say that you were naturally more inclined to be that coach, to be in delivery, and to transition to where you are today? That's an amazing transformation.
Yeah, well, that's the thing as well. Like, 'cause I didn't see that those 2 were so intertwined. And what I mean by that is, right, is like, I would see it as like, cool, like sales, you get them in, you bring them in. But I was like the leader at the back. I was the coach at the back that like helped get people from where they are to where they want to get to. When I had that self-realization of like, that's all sales is, right? That's all it is. Like,
sales is change.
It's about being a leader and having conviction, helping someone from where they are to where they want to. I'd seen it like that, but when I saw it like that, I was like, shit, there's like, I'm missing out on so much, not being able to help the people that haven't gone through that stage yet. So like, that's a skill set and a craft that I can learn where I can help more people and have more impact. That was kind of like, I had that moment of shift. So yeah, then I realized sales.
And what made you realize that? Was it working with Matt? Was it working with Travis? Was it realizing that you still had to sell people on their goal again in the 28 days? And you realize, hang on, that's not too different from the first conversation.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I think what happened was we kind of moved into another gym and moved into a bit of a different capacity. So the sales landed on me. And then I just essentially was like, look, to grow this gym, get it where it needs to, I put the trainers in the position where they were doing all the fulfillment, and I stepped into a sales only role. I actually did really well with it, right? Still running off no real training or experience, like just off the conviction. So that then exposed me, like, I'm able to bring so many more people through here. So that was kind of the moment, I guess, like where I realized, like, okay, this has got some legs to it, and I can have much more impact here.
When you were in that sales role, you had conviction. You were doing some of the sales training that was provided by RBT. Was it just that you're relying on, or was there another level in your sales evolution that took you to that next step?
Yeah, so from there, like a bit of the timeline, I guess. So from there, we moved back to Western Australia. Like, obviously, we had a kid and stuff. At the time, I needed to get like some instant cash coming through. So I actually went and worked FIFO for a period. I was there for like maybe a year, and I just realized like I'm miserable, right? Like working away for 2 weeks on and 1 week off, and then when you have a little boy that's growing up, and you want to make sure he knows who you are when you get home, I was just like, I can't do this. So I reached back out to Matt, who at this time had started kind of Sales Sniper, right? So I was like, look, like, can you give us a bit of an opportunity? So he did, right? So I actually started out, I was on a cybersecurity account. At this point, I had to go through the boot camp and everything beforehand, though. So I was like, look, I need to start getting some sales under my belt again. So it's funny. I went on. I found this guy on Instagram, and who was looking for a sales rep. It was an online program. The marketing was amazing. Like, the people that want to look into it, it's called Physique Factory. Like, if you guys want to have some marketing, some funny marketing like advice, look at his marketing. But anyway, that sales kind of position was very short. It was like 15-minute calls. Like, essentially, I would just kind of like steamroll people. And that was a way to do it. But then joining Sales Sniper, I was like, okay, I need to level up here. So that was when, obviously, Matt taught us a lot of skills there and the team there. And then we got introduced to, kind of NEPQ, and then the real journey kind of kicked in.
So when you were going through the boot camp, that's what sales training was. That's what they called it, the boot camp of the sales training. Yep. And at that point, were you using was it more of Matt's methodologies? Was it more RBT methodologies, or was there elements of NEPQ sprinkled in there?
So it was very NEPQ heavy, right? And I remember going into that boot camp because I can't remember. I think there was 40 people, right? And it was like, I think like four or five of us got through. And I remember going into it and starting out, and I was like, oh no, like I am way in over my head. Like, these people have been selling like, SaaS and all these different industries I'd never even heard of before for years. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm selling a $50 fitness program at the moment. I've got some PT experience behind me. I was like, let's see how we go. But I became obsessed with it, right? Because I needed to, because I knew that I needed to make it work.
So to jump in, mate, 40 people went through it, 4 survived or completed the training. Yeah. What was the training, and why was there such a high dropout rate?
Yeah, so essentially it wasn't really a dropout rate. It was like you got a position at the end of it. So it was like they employed like the top 10%, right? So that's kind of what it was. And then the boot camp, like, because it's kind of based on US hours. So like we had to show up to these like sessions. We had to go through and do like a lot of homework and go through training they'd given us. And then we had to show up on the sessions to these sessions, like some of them were like at midnight, right? It's like I'm in Perth, which is the worst time zone basically on the planet. So it's like 12 o'clock, some of them even 3 in the morning. I'm showing up, like going through these sessions. And then at the very end, we had to do a role play with the main like guy that was leading it. and we had to like sell him on something. And then from there, it was like, thumbs up or thumbs down, like gladiator moment. And I remember going into that role play, I was so nervous, like still feeling like fish out of water. But I guess it must have worked.
So, with your sales and fitness, how much of that do you attribute to your success in your next role? Just having all those reps under your belt, doing so many consultations in person over the phone.
In terms of the PT position, you mean?
Yeah, like how did the sales and fitness translate to getting through boot camp and landing your next role in cyber?
Yeah, massively. I think what like fitness sales does for you, and like I'm not the only person that says this, like if you can do pretty well in fitness sales, like you will always be on a much further ahead than a lot of other industries. The reason being is like you've got to think about the logistics of what we're actually selling here, right? Like it's something that's not really very enjoyable. People don't like it. There is pretty much no return on investment except for like, a feeling or weight on a scale or muscle, whatever you want to call it. But there's no tangible like income return, right? So they spend money to go through pain, doing things they don't enjoy and taking out things they do enjoy. So if you can sell that efficiently, you're set up for success, right? So like, I think fitness.
Well, if you look at Alex Hormozi's value equation, selling fitness is the least valuable thing on earth. So it's desired outcome, lose 10 kilos, perceived likelihood of achievement, fuck all, because they've tried 25 times before. It is effort and sacrifice. You got to make effort, sacrifice all things that you love, time delay, maybe 12 months, and you still won't reach your goals. It is fucking difficult to sell.
Pay me a bunch of money for it as well.
Yeah. It's just, So when you were selling cyber, which had like an outcome, a tangible ROI, how did you find that compared to selling fitness? Like, were you even more confident because you had like that ROI component, or how was that transition?
Yeah, definitely. So it's funny. So like through, I guess, like the kind of method that we learned to sell with like the NUPQ method, like, you go through a lot of the like logistics and stuff like that. A lot of it is like getting them in that emotional state, right? But like at first I always found like I would, kind of learning it all. It's like, it was kind of like a no-brainer, right? Like I hate kind of hearing people say that in sales, but like it kind of was. Like essentially what we were doing was a biz op. So it was like people would come from like working in warehouses, working, 12 hours plus a day, 7 days a week for like 40 grand. We would get them like certifications, and then we would like help place them in an industry with a very high employability rate into a role where they're starting out basically on 6 figures and they work from home. So it was like, it was a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. So as long as the marketing's good and you're speaking to the right people, it is a fucking no-brainer.
Literally, yeah. So like the issue that I was running into though is because like when I first started, like I didn't really have that skill set. So I was still like, I would kind of go so much into the logistic, right? Like just kind of like pointing out facts, like, man, how could I not get them to see that? But then when you really learn the skills of like getting the emotion in there, like that's when you can really start, because obviously, human beings make decisions on logic or emotion, right? Like
so emotion, you thought because you thought there was a tangible ROI, you're better off selling on the tangible, not really talking about the emotional. It makes perfect sense, right? I struggle with that with B2B sales, right? So with our done for everything service, it's a fucking no-brainer. Yeah. And I am solution dropping from minute one. Yeah. And then like, it's just because like, it's interesting. I've actually struggled with that myself. Like, cause I sold so much fitness and like, well, like, I'm just going to do those fucking calls for you, mate. Like, do you want to save 10 hours?
Yeah, no, it's a weird one, right? And that you can find that even more frustrating sometimes, because like, you feel like you're beating someone over the head with like this, perfect solution. They just can't see it. But yeah, when I then realized like, okay, I'm going to have to bring in like a lot of this emotion-based selling that we do from fitness, back it by logic, that's when you start to like, you see the matrix a bit, you know what I mean? And the conversations, like they're just objectionless. Because how could they have an objection?
I guess the emotion behind this biz op offer was like, hey, like you're not happy in your current role, you don't enjoy it, you're not making the money that you want to earn. So as opposed to saying you're going to earn more money, it would be like, well, what would that money do for you? And why is that important to you? And what is the impact if you don't earn that money?
Well, that's the biggest thing. And that's when I had that lesson as well, right? Like where human beings will make decisions like more from a problem standpoint than a solution standpoint, right? Because even if you think about it, like if someone's just selling super yachts, like someone goes out there and wants to buy a super yacht, like there's still a reason why they're doing that. There's still like an emotional need or fulfillment that they're filling by actually going and getting that. So I was just solution-based selling. Like, this is what you're going to get. You're going to work remote. You're going to make way more money. Like, how good is this? But then I realized, like, no, like you need to go to the other end. Like, it's all about the problems they're experiencing in this moment, like right today. Like, those are the reasons. Like, why?
That's a really
why are you here?
That's amazing, mate. Because like you were selling a concrete, tangible ROI, guaranteed, no-brainer offer. And you found that selling for the emotional reasons why was more beneficial, yet people in fitness still sell kettlebells and rowers and treadmills. And if it doesn't work for a guaranteed job with a 6-figure income, it's not going to work for your fitness offer either. Like it's all based on emotion.
Exactly. And that's like when you figure that out, right? Like when you find out that like there is a problem as to why someone is sitting in front of you or why they're in your gym, like that's what you need to figure out. That's the pain point, right? It's not about whether your gym is blue or the kettlebells are brand new or they're like, 16 years old. Like the equipment doesn't matter. Like all that matters is that they have a problem that you can solve and you can get them where they want to go to. You can get them results.
One of the best things that I learned, mate, was in 2012, my first ever mentor, his name was Andre. He said, Jayme, when your mum walks into this gym, it was a world gym, big scary gym. She goes, what does your mum see? And I went, oh, she sees a Life Fitness treadmill. She sees hammer strength. She said, no, Jayme. Your mum sees nothing because she's shitting her pants. And it was just it was a great visual of my mum walking into a gym.
Exactly, right? Like you can't have the conversation that you want to have. You need to have the conversation that they want and that they need, right? So it's an interesting lesson.
So we went from RBT to cybersecurity to doing really well on that offer. Once you had that breakthrough, like, hey, like, yes, there is a tangible outcome, but it is still emotional.
Yep.
How did you come to that understanding? Was it being coached? Was it your close percentage wasn't where it was? Was it listening back to calls? How did you improve that element of your sales?
Yeah, it was everything. And like, look, I was very fortunate, like in that position. I had really good mentors. I had like a lot of support, like world-class coaching. So like I had everything in my favor. The biggest thing as well was like I had a reason, I had a drive to do it. You know what I mean? Like I needed to make that work. I had a little boy at home. I couldn't go back, like, drive and dump trucks for 2 weeks on, 1 week off. So I had to make it work. So I kind of became obsessed with it. Like all I did was in any time that I had was self-educate and learn. But a lot of that was done through, like call reviews with like a mentor, someone that was able to give me advice, like, and brutally as well, which is what I responded well to. And then, it's funny. I actually got put on like a couple of different accounts within like a very short period as well. So within about a 4-month period, I was selling from like low ticket fitness, what I got in on. I was selling cybersecurity certifications. I was selling business coaching. I actually started selling really high ticket fitness as well. So it was like getting women on stage. It's like $15,000, $18,000 programs to get them on stage and stuff. So it was good. It was like really good experience because the thing that I noticed between being on all of these different accounts is like, it's very similar. Like when you look at the methodology of what's going behind the matrix, it's like, this is all the same thing. Like people are here.
We're selling people. We're not selling it. We're selling people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So like interesting, mate. The biggest question I get is how do you sell for so many different accounts? Like I've never done Pilates. I've never done pole dancing. I've never done spin sessions. I've never done I haven't. No. But like I can sell it. Like we sell for an aerial dance studio. And it's very, very hard for these franchise founders and these business owners and these gym owners to understand that, like, hey, like, I know you believe so much in your product and your brand, but like at the end of the day, we're still selling a person, and they don't care.
That's it. All it is a vehicle. Like that's all it is, right? Someone is somewhere in a position and they want to get somewhere else because of some reasons that they're experiencing, problems, whatever it is, right? The thing that we're selling is just a vehicle to get them there. And once you understand that, like you can have very similar conversations depending on what you're selling. And at the end, you're just providing your solution at the time to help get them where they want to get to, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah. So every fitness call we do, and massive credit to Brooke, your wife, and AP, like every single phone call is exactly the same until the last 3 core pillars. And we change bike for rower. Like it literally changed 5 different words to sell every modality in Australia.
Yeah. 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 Well, it works.
So with going from low ticket to high ticket to cybersecurity, developing as a salesperson, you said being obsessed. Now, what does obsessed mean to you? Is it doing more activity than others? Is it doing more development? It is. What do you mean by that? And being obsessed, did that take you from a 5 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10? What was your growth like over that period when you decided to commit? And what were some of your numbers in the end?
Yeah. I had a pretty big uptake, trajectory, I guess you call it. I guess obsession for me is just it was all I was really thinking about. So I remember I would literally I would have, I don't know if it was dreams, when you're kind of just waking up and you're kind of getting it, and I would have questions from my script and from my methodology that I would just be saying in my head, and I'm like, why am I saying this? Is this a dream? What's going on? That was the level of obsession that I was at. I was just reciting this stuff in my subconscious. So and that was just done through any opportunity that I had. I was just learning, going through training, reviewing, everything. So that was the obsession. And in terms of the uptake, I mean, I started as a setter, which is a really good way to do it as well, starting in a setting position, because in my honest opinion, I think that's probably the hardest part, right? Is the start of the call, figuring out someone's problem and what's going on. So
So just for an audience, just for our audience, a setting call would be a gym owner calling leads, setting an appointment for them to come in to do a studio tour or to do that consultation. So effectively, calling leads, sometimes even full cold call phone book leads.
Yeah, 100%. So you're calling people kind of out of the blue. A lot of the time they're busy, and you're having a good enough conversation where you're able to pull out some kind of pain point or problem big enough for them to actually have a reason to show up, whether it's coming into the gym or in my instance was showing up for a strategy session or a closing call, right? So I was in that position for about a month, which is pretty quick. And then I moved, into a closing role and kind of went across all the different accounts. So my progression was quite fast, and I probably attribute that to the fact that I just got obsessed with it.
and looking back, what were the things that you were missing? Was it the lack of understanding about the activity required? Was it the actual objection handling? Was it just understanding that it is emotion over logic? What was the biggest gap from when you finished at RBT to where you are today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just conceptualizing. It's funny because I sell to fitness, I sell to salespeople now, right? So because everyone's I want to get objection handling skills. I want to know the perfect word tracks. I want to know what to say when someone says this. But what I really find, and for the people that are at the top as well, is it's not just, it's about the concepts, what's really going on and why, not just what they're saying, but how they're saying it. Okay, someone can give you a money objection. They can say the exact same words, but how they're saying it can mean completely different things. So that was, I guess, the biggest aha moment for me was when I started to you can say you almost see through the matrix a little bit. It's not just here's words in the scripts, here's what they're saying. It's why are we saying it and what are they really saying behind it? That's the most important thing. And that was attributed to a lot of the mentors that I had as well. Because, you'd have someone show up on a call and it's this person, bad lead. They don't have any problems. They don't have any pain. It's hang on a sec. Why are they there? They're there, booked in on your calendar. They've taken an hour out of their time. They've booked in on your calendar. There is a reason why something's there, right? So understanding that, it makes you fight further for the actual person in front of you. But the concept.
So it's not just reading this. It's not reading the script. It's understanding why we're asking the questions the way that we're asking them and how we're asking them to get the response to. Because I feel, Scott, people are horrible at articulating themselves. It's hard to say to a stranger, "Hey, I'm here because I'm broke. I make no money, and I'm unhappy with life."
Yeah.
So how do you draw that out of someone? How do you draw that out of someone?
Yeah.
in a respectful manner.
Exactly, right? Yeah, because you can't lead with that, right?
Yeah.
Because like for one, like there's a thing called sales resistance. So people are always coming into these conversations guarded. Like you're not just going to open up to your deepest, darkest secrets to a complete stranger, right? So yeah, it's about like being able to navigate that in a way which like you can get the information out because you need the information and they need the information. Because a lot of the time they don't even self-realize this stuff. Like some people that are having these conversations, especially with fitness, like, I used to have like kind of like grown ass men, like in tears, you know what I mean? Because you're having these like deep conversations. They've never even had these conversations with their closest mates. You know what I mean? Because you've created a safe spot for them to be able to open up. But like you need them to self-realize that. Otherwise they just keep telling themselves the same story.
One of the biggest things when I was selling high ticket fitness, it was like, oh, I've just been out of shape. Oh, and how long has this been a problem for? 20 years. It's just it's a throwaway comment. Oh, like over half your life, like 20 years.
Yeah.
That's an extraordinary amount of time, Sally. And if you say it like that and slow it down, it forces them to confront the fact that like over half my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And even that as well, like what you just said there, like it's interesting. Like when you learn like about language as well, like when someone says just, right? Like just is such a, like, I'm just here to lose some weight. Like I'm just here to make more money. It's like the word just, like that's like someone is not going to just lose 20 kilos that they've been fighting for 20 years. You know what I mean? Like those certain things in languages, 100%. Like you need to pick up on as well. Because language is just an external representation of what's going on in the internal, right? So if someone thinks that they just have 20 kilos, like you need to reframe that. It's a lot more than just 20 kilos on the table here. Yeah. It's everything else behind it.
Just 20 kilos preventing a heart attack so you can see your grandkids be born.
There you go. Right.
That's why like fitness sales is hard, mate, but I also love it too, because I'm sure you hear Brooke do it too. But like when you have that transformative conversation with Sally, who's just got 30 kilos to lose, to finally understand that she is the problem. She is doing this to herself and she needs to act today and cannot delay it for one more moment with integrity, where they thank you at the end of the call. It really is just an amazing experience.
Yeah, 100%. And like, that's the thing as well. Like even going through those moments, like you can still get an objection at the end, right? And like, of course, it's been 20 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can have these moments of realization, and like you can get to that level of depth, but they're still going to have object because they're still fearful. And this is something I see a lot of as well, is like when you've gone to that level in your conversation, you've done everything, right? They still hit you with an objection. Like a lot of like where sales reps kind of get undone is they start to like, for one, they get combative, which we know is the worst thing to possibly do. But secondly, they start smacking them with like logistics. You know what I mean? You got to think about it. Like when someone is in a fearful state, logistics are out the window. Like you cannot make sense of a madman. Like that is the death of sales, right? So like all you need to do is like help them overcome that kind of like narrative they've been telling themselves 20 years, right? But you need to do it from a place of like empathy, and you need to like get them back into that emotional state. So it's hard to see because a lot of people do all the front end work and then just at the end they just let it go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The biggest example in fitness is like, oh, $50 a week is expensive. Oh, you told me you smoke 2 packs a week. Not going to work. Not going to work on Sally, who's been overweight for 20 years. Yeah. Like you have no right to be their financial planner after a 10-minute phone call.
Yeah. And there's a reason why she's like spending that money on smokes. Like it's something deeper than that, right? Like, So it's like, that logistics isn't going to work. And that's where I see people go wrong so much. Like, it's funny, like, cause obviously selling to fitness people, right? Selling to sales people. Like when a salesperson gives me an objection, I go into role play with them. So I'll be like, all right, man, time out for a second. Like, let's flip this. Like, I'm gonna be you. I'm gonna give you the exact same objection, and I want to see how you handle it. So that's why you're here, right? Is to get better. And they all do it. They all go into logistics, and it's like, mate, it's not the play. Like, that's not the way to go about it.
So I get it all the time, Scott, where like people will watch my sales content. They'll jump on a call with me, like, oh, let me guess, you're gonna objection handle me now, Or the worst thing they can say to you is like, oh, you're really good at sales. I'm like, well, we'll find out in a second when I get that card number.
100%.
So you talk about looking through the matrix. Yep. You're selling to salespeople that you'd have to assume that have a base understanding of sales. They understand what a partner objection is, what a time objection is, what a cost objection is. How do you I've always wondered that, like you mentioned that you role play, but how do you overcome that? They're on, because fitness sales, right? They're clicking to booking a call to learn more. That person isn't under the impression that it is a sales call. But you have to assume a salesperson knows this is a sales call.
Yeah. No, they know exactly what's going on. It's interesting. There's a lot of sometimes it's just the best way to do it is just to you just call it straight out. So for one, if someone's being really resistant because they know it's a sales call, I'm not going to let you sell me. You just break it down. It's hey man, I get it. I'm a sales guy, you're a sales guy, right? What we can do though is we can go through the actual process. You can see it in live action, and see how effective it is. Would that be worth your time? No, sure, okay. And it's funny, when you take them through the process, they can't help but get into it, right? They start opening up and telling you all these things, and then at the end of the call, they're like, "Oh my god, shit, that actually worked." And I was aware of it. I was aware of the questions that you were using on me.
So the salesperson jumps on to improve their close percentage by 10%. You go through the NAPQ framework and you realize that they need to earn an extra $20K a month to have the house that they want, to provide the family, the life that they need. And all of a sudden, you can't not get emotional about that.
Yeah, 100%. Even when people do role plays, right? There's always it's an interesting thing. The personality of the person doing the role play kind of creeps in. Because it's a lot easier to rather than making something up, it's very easy to bleed in your actual desires and everything. So it even happens in role plays and trainings and stuff. But it's very interesting. And the other thing as well about selling to salespeople is a lot of them are the worst for giving objections. And it's because they get them all the time, right? And it's funny, there is actually, it's a very interesting thing, is there is a the objections that we get are the ones that we give. And it makes sense, right? As an example, if I could not make a decision without first speaking to my wife, so speaking to Brooke, if someone gives me a partner objection, how would I ever overcome that? Because I have a belief in that narrative, right?
It goes back to the first thing that Brooke taught you at RBT. You have to have conviction in what you sell. And if you have to ask 100%. Your wife, how dare you challenge someone to not ask their wife?
Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of these salespeople, they want to get better and, help close people, but in reality, helping people invest in themselves to get where they want to go. Yet they've never done it before and they can't do it. When it comes down to them actually making an investment, they just have that fear and everything overcome them. And it's hey man, this is much more than, what you think it is. This isn't just about $1 investment to get you better at skill set. This is you being able to overcome this, because how you feel right now is exactly how every single one of your prospects feels. So if you cannot overcome this,
what is the biggest thing, Scott?
Yeah, I'll just cut out a little bit.
What is the biggest thing that salespeople? Oh, have you got me, mate?
I got you back. Yeah, just think it cut out a little bit.
Have you got me, Scott? Cool. Yeah. Mate, what is the biggest thing that salespeople misunderstand or completely get wrong?
The biggest one is that they have the spotlight on them. It's the biggest thing. Whether it's cold calling, outbound, whatever it is. Hey, I'm Scott from XYZ. We did this, we did that, product pushing, as opposed to because whoever you're speaking to, they don't give a shit about you. As bad as that sounds, they do not care about you. Who do they care about? They care about themselves. Right. So where people go wrong is they think that, their product is the best thing ever, and which, it could be, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's all, the spotlight needs to be on the person you're speaking to. So that is the biggest issue that I see in sales.
Yeah. We've been in Newcastle for 7 years, mate. We've given $66,000 to local family in the area. We've had thousands of members. We spent close to 100,000 on Facebook ads in our 2 gyms. I cannot believe people haven't heard of our gym in Newcastle. But what an arrogant thought that would be. Hey, it's Jayme from Breakthrough Active. I'm sure you've heard of us. No one gives a shit. Yeah. No one cares. They got their own stuff going on.
Yeah, exactly, right? And even if they did, cool. But can you help them? You know what I mean? Everyone is the center of their own universe. So that's all that matters to them. So that's the biggest issue, especially with cold calling. I see people, going out there and, I'm XYZ and this is what we do and we've got this track record, and like immediately it's just like salesperson. This guy's trying to sell me something. Like, I don't give a shit about that.
Mm. Mate, what's it like working very closely with who I think is the world's greatest salesperson, Jayme Miner, and being married to another very good salesperson, and how they both helped you in your development? In going Scott from RBT, who was a delivery product guy, to now someone who sells sales training to salespeople.
Yeah, imagine what our son's going to turn out like, right?
He's going to sell a fitness membership sell a fitness membership which includes a cybersecurity biz package.
No, it's awesome. It's interesting. Like, obviously, there's everything's very like sales kind of based around us. But no, we've just been very fortunate to have like a lot of, very skillful people in my life and in Brooke's life as well. But still all getting better, still improving. There's always that next level, right? And like for myself, it's only been about, what is it now? Maybe like 2 years that I've kind of been like full time into sales. And, I still feel like I'm a beginner in all this. So, there's always room to improve and get better.
What is the next stage for 7th level in Australia, and what is your role, and what do you hope that 7th level becomes in Australia and around the world?
Yeah, so I think that's the next big like kind of push is to like get the Australian side kind of up and running. That's where like a lot of the resources will kind of start getting put into. It has been a bit of I guess a difference in terms of like the way that sales is from like Australia to the US. Like obviously US, a lot of it, like pretty much all of it is commission only, right? So because of that, you've got a lot of people that are making not very much money and they see people making a lot of money. So there's a huge gap there, which I've noticed has actually started more within the Australian market. But a few years ago, like Australian sales reps, they're all just, usually on like 80, 90K bases. They might be able to get 10, 20K in commissions. You know what I mean? So it's like the gap wasn't necessarily as much, but I have noticed a shift actually, where a lot of these positions now are moving.
I didn't know commission only existed until I worked with Brooke. Had no idea.
Yeah, neither.
And for anyone playing along at home, I made $28,000 commission the second month there. So like, when you say that, people have two responses: he's full of shit, or fuck him.
Yeah, and it's like it's almost like unbelievable. It's but it's much more fruitful when you go commission only. High risk, high reward.
and that shift that's changing in Australia, do you attribute that to 7th level and the training that you guys are providing and the placement that you guys are doing? Because, mate, like I think I'm so deep into the industry. I can't believe people haven't heard of Jayme Miner. I can't believe people haven't heard of NEPQ. Like the same way I can't believe people haven't heard of Breakthrough Active at Adamstown and Newcastle. Yeah,
it's funny, right? Like when you're in an industry to that depth, it's hard to believe that other people can't see it. I think that would be a bit to it. I also think I don't know, I guess there's just been a bit of a shift. Like maybe a lot of Australian businesses are seeing that model can really work as well. Like, because if you've got someone that's on like a cushy salary, right? Like, are they going to be more inclined to do the hard stuff and to do the work that a real top performer needs to do to get there? Like, probably not, right? There's not much reward for them. Whereas if you put someone on like a commission only position, like it's like they have to do the work, they have to succeed, and there's a lot more reward for them to do so. So that helps drive the business a lot more. So I think businesses are seeing that a lot more now, and they're switching to that model. So it's good though.
One of the biggest things I got from, I guess, learning from Brooke and AP, and just I've never worked with Jeremy or Matt, but just very familiar with the NEPQ framework, is I used to find sales absolutely exhausting because I was the bulldozer. I would just come over the top.
Yeah.
And then I remember when I worked for the 4% Club, I said to AP, I said, I'm a good salesperson. And he said, I guess we'll find out then. And I panicked. I thought, fuck, maybe I'm not that good. And I listened to tons of Brooke calls, tons of Curtis's calls. I pretty much listened to every call recording on that Google Drive. And when I listened, I couldn't believe how laid back the calls were. And I couldn't believe just the laydowns that were occurring because of the work that was done upstream. So, like, how do you feel about the stereotypes in sales? And I'm not comfortable telling people that I love sales. I don't know about you.
Yeah. I think it's changing, right? Like, I mean, that's the mission, like of seventh level as well, is to like change the way that sales is perceived. And that's only really going to be done through like more interactions, like what, we're doing, you know what I mean? Because you got to think of it, like we do this stuff, 7, 8, 10 times a day with 10 different people, right? But someone may only have a sales call once every 3 years. So like they've jumped on a call, they have a negative experience because they have a pushy sales rep that's just trying to, they don't necessarily have the skill set, so they're just trying to like sell them through kind of dominating them. That person goes away, and for 3 years they just have that taste in their mouth. I think I might have lost you again there. Can you hear me, Jim?
No, I've got you, mate, perfectly. Got
you
perfectly.
Yeah.
Mate, I'll never forget it. Never forget it. I was a toolie. I went back to schoolies a second time. And I left my going out shoes at home, and we had to go to Pacific Fair, and I had to buy a pair of like shoes to go out that night to a nightclub. And I'll never forget it, mate. I was a young, brash, confident, muscle-bound man. I went to this shop to buy a pair of shoes, and I spoke to this shoe salesperson who at the time I thought was just a customer service rep. And this motherfucker, he pretty much undid my shoes, jammed me into another pair, made me walk around the store, took a photo of me in the shoes, packed them in the box, and I bought them. I literally couldn't say no, and it was the most dirtiest interaction I've ever had. And I, myself, hated salespeople.
Yeah, 100%. And like, yeah, you may have at the time, like, bought the shoes or whatever, but like, was that a great experience? And like, you've got to think about it, like for things more than shoes, like if it's a fitness program that you have to continually do for 12 weeks, like that motivation isn't there. Like it's just an external momentary thing. That's the issue as well, is like you've got to look beyond the moment. It's not just the moment getting to say yes and sign up. You're having an interaction with them that is laying the road for them to go through a career change in 6 months, or to go through a fitness program and get results consistently for 12 weeks. So it's like, that's
one of my favorite sayings, Scott. It's you don't get a client to make a sale. You make a sale to get a client. And if you get a client to make a sale, it's a one-time transaction. Therefore, you don't care how that transaction occurred. You don't care about the taste in their mouth post-sale. But we want to make a sale to get a client that is reoccurring revenue, that actually uses the product, that actually gets a result, that brings referrals and leaves a review. And I think that is the biggest change in sales.
100%. And like, because I know a lot of people that kind of listen to this are like business owners as well, right? Like, yeah, it's always good, like seeing the other end of it, because like if you can get really good at sales and help like motivate internally the prospect to move forward, it just makes your job so much easier as a business owner in the delivery, because you have a good client that's going to actually like do the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Mate, I've got 2 more questions. I do not want to run over. Question number 1 is, what is something that salespeople believe to be true that isn't?
That scarcity works. Like external scarcity.
Expand on that.
So, there's only an action taker discount if you sign up on this call.
I hate that so much.
Right. At the end of this, you're gonna make a decision. You will get rewarded for being a decision maker. Like, like you may get 1 out of, I don't know, however many, 1 out of 20 that will be like already going to do it and be like, oh, okay, I'll just do it right now. But it's not as effective as everyone thinks it is.
100%. And once again, if they're making a decision purely based off 20% off, it goes back to what we said before, like what type of client are they going to be? And the worst type of clients are like, what do I get for my $25 a week exactly?
Yeah, 100%. And like, is that putting them in result-based thinking or price-based thinking? From the initial 100%. Interaction.
One more question. Yeah. One more question, mate. One of my favorite questions of the podcast. What's one question I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I think we did a good job. I think we covered a fair bit of it. One question you should have asked me. I guess maybe how to learn sales skill sets as fast as possible and get really good results.
And the answer is?
Get obsessed with it.
Get obsessed with it.
Now, the answer would be like, yes, get obsessed with it, but like you need to have a method to it, right? So like, obviously,
Yeah.
that's what we do. We train salespeople. We get them really good at sales. Um, the biggest thing is that I see a lot of is like people just kind of like jump into everything. They throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like you need to have like a systematic approach to it. Like when I first started up on like seventh level account, like because like I said, right, salespeople give a lot of objections, almost more than fitness do. My objection handling was less because on a lot of the accounts that I had, I was really good at pre-handling, so I would get a lot of objectionless closes. Moving into that space, a lot of them were as objections, and that was my weak point. So I immediately like realized that, and I just straight to objection handling, went all into objection handling for like weeks and weeks. And from there, I got to see the results. Like it was like the lowest hanging fruit, right? So like the answer to the question is like know what your weak points are and improve those, the things that can give you the highest return.
Yeah, it's like a marketing funnel. It's not that marketing doesn't work. There's a part of your funnel that's broken. The same with sales. Maybe you get lots of people that tell you to go away. Well, maybe your opener sucks. Maybe your calls are really long and maybe you open up doors that shouldn't be opened. Or maybe you just cannot close a door. And identifying what that bottleneck is. And the only way to do that is to actually have a coach, to have a mentor, to listen to a call to work out what the fuck's going on. Because otherwise you just change everything. Every week you go straight line persuasion, you go NEPQ, you go to Dan Locke, and you just bounce around and end up nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Because everyone thinks they need objection handling training, but really they're saying the first things that come out of their mouth, inducing those objections. So it's like, hey, would you rather handle on the back end or on the front end?
Mate, I'm the worst objection handler on planet Earth, but I'm very good at pre-handling them.
There you go, right?
Yeah. Well, mate, it's been really amazing watching your journey because I met you about 2 years ago and you weren't working with seventh level. I think you just started on that cyber account. I saw you on a podcast with Matt or Jeremy. You were the top cyber closer in Australia, and now you actually sell for the largest sales training company in the world. You should be really proud of yourself, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. It's been a journey.
Appreciate your time.
Still just getting started.
Cool, mate. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, man.